Hello and welcome everyone to today's class on basic concepts in geometry. So this is from mathematics part 2 and we are going to finish this chapter in this class. So let's quickly look at what we have completed or what we have done so far. So for this basic concepts in geometry for this class, we have seen the very basic things, that is what is a point, what is a line and plane. I request everyone, all the students, to be very attentive in this recap, because at the end of this class we will be taking a short quiz, and that will be including these initial parts, that is this recap. So be really very attentive. So when we say point, point is a location in space and it has no dimensions. And how do we represent a point? Using capital letters. All right. Then we saw what is a line. A line is a set of points. We know all about that. But how do we represent a line? We will just look at it in a very short form. So a line has both the ends having arrows, right? And when we write it in represent, or when we represent it, we write PQ, and then using those letters above it, we need to show a line. Fine. And what is the length of a line? It's infinite. It has no width, it has no thickness. When we say a plane is a two-dimensional figure, okay, and it has no length and no width and no thickness also. Fine. Then we saw how to find distance. If we are given 2 points, we subtract the coordinates of those 2 points. So smaller coordinate from the larger coordinate, we subtract like that, and it gives us the distance. And the very important thing, or the basic thing, is that distance is always positive. So it can never be non-negative. Okay, it can never be negative. And then we saw betweenness, the meaning of betweenness. The formula is very important. And over here you can see this formula. So if we say that a point Q is between 2 points P and R, then that means this formula is like helpful. So distance, if the distance PQ plus the distance QR is equal to distance PR, then it is said that the point Q is between the points P and R. Okay, and betweenness is symbolized like this: P dash Q dash R. All right, so here you can say PQ plus QR is equals to PR, then that means that point Q is between P and R. And then we saw a table format for all the basic concepts written together. So it's like what is a line, which has both the ends as arrowheads. Segment has only ends at both the ends, right? There is no arrowheads. Strictly those are two end points. And then for a ray, if you look at the ray, it has one end point and other end is a arrowhead, right? And then when two rays, they join each other at one common point, and the two rays or the two arms are in different directions or they are apart from each other, that forms an angle, right? It has one common point or the common starting point, that is called as the vertex. Okay, and then plane and point, we know all the basic things. So how to symbolize them, that is very important. Like here you can see the words and symbols. When we write the line, we can write it in two ways: either line small m, or it can be h. On over it we can just draw that symbol of line. Same way for a segment, when we write the name of that segment, like here it is nd, over it we need to draw a small segment. And for a ray, when we write the letters LE, over it we need to write, or we need to draw that ray. Okay, so just looking at the representation also, or the symbols also, we can tell if it is a line, if it is a segment or a ray. Same goes with angle. We use this symbol for stating that it's an angle. All right. Then we did what are congruent segments. If the length of two segments are equal, then we say that those two segments are congruent. And these were the properties of congruent segments that we saw yesterday: reflexivity, symmetry, and transitivity. The very like simple trick to remember or not getting confused is, for reflexivity we use only one line segment, that is a segment is congruent to itself. For symmetry we use two, and for transitivity we use three, right? And everything is related to congruency. And then midpoint, this is complete logic, simple logic, that if M is a midpoint, then it breaks the line segment into two equal parts, right? And every segment has one and only one midpoint. And when we come to comparing two segments, we compare them on the basis of their lengths. So it's completely like, if the length of AB is less than length of CD, then we say that the segment AB is less than segment CD. And the last thing was perpendicularity. It's about if two line segments, they join each other or they intersect each other at 90 degree, then they are said to be perpendicular. And then how do we denote that perpendicularity? It's by inverse or inverted T, capital T. That is the symbol for perpendicular. Okay, so this is something we are going to do today. After finishing this, we will be doing a quiz. So today we will learn what are conditional statements and what is the meaning of converse. Okay. Now the word conditional. Conditional means there is some condition, right? So condition means if this then if this then that, like that sort of statements. So the statements which can be written in this form, if this then that, they are called as the conditional statements. Okay. And the part of the statement, there are two parts to these type of statements. One is called as the antecedent, and the second is called as consequent. All right. So the first part which is given is called as antecedent, and the part which is given later, the later one is something we have to prove. Okay. So the later which we are asked to prove is called as the consequent. And we will be looking at very nice examples. Like example, if I give you that, if I complete my homework, then my teacher will give me a star. This is a conditional statement. If I complete my homework, then the teacher will give me a star. This is conditional. The first part, that is if I complete my homework, this is called as antecedent, the first part. And the second part, the teacher will give me a star, is the consequent, the consequences of something happening, right? And what will be the converse of this? When we say converse, that means, when we say converse, that means we are just interchanging the two parts. That is, we are interchanging the antecedent and the consequent. So what will be the converse of this? The teacher has given me a star. That means I have completed my homework, right? The teacher has given me a star. Automatically, what does that mean? That I have completed my homework. So it's about interchanging the parts, the antecedent and the consequent. That's how we get the converse. Okay. So here there is an example. Let's look at a mathematical example now. The diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular bisectors of each other. Now, this statement can be written in a conditional form. So, how do we write it using conditional form? All right. So I'm just going to highlight the words antecedent and consequent. All right. So, we are looking at this example where we are going to write this in conditional form. Okay. So, the conditional form has the words if this is happening, then something is happening. All right. So if the given quadrilateral, here they have mentioned it as a rhombus. So remember that rhombus is a quadrilateral, right? It belongs to quadrilateral family. So if the given quadrilateral is a rhombus, then what will happen? Its diagonals are perpendicular bisectors of each other. Okay. So this is the first type of question that has been asked, that write the given statement in if then form. And the second type of question which is asked is to convert this into converse. Okay. So second type is to convert the statement into converse. And what do you mean by converse? Converse is vice versa, opposite of it, the other way. Okay, so if the antecedent and the consequent in a given conditional statement, if they are interchanged, then what happens? The resulting statement, it is called the converse. All right, and with that we will look at few more examples. Yes. So this is the first type of questions which are asked, that is, write the following statement in if then form. Okay. So the first example here is cheese contains calcium. Okay. So we have to write this using the statement in if then form. All right. So the first part is cheese and the second part is calcium, right? So antecedent is cheese, that if it is cheese, then it will contain calcium. Calcium is the consequent, right? So if we break it, or if we write it in if then form, then it would be written as if it is a cheese, then it contains calcium. Okay, so these are some real life examples where we use these statements in if then form. And what if we try to converse it, or we try to find the converse of this? So it will be that if, just a minute, yeah, if something contains calcium, if something contains calcium, then that is cheese. Is it true? Is it true always? So we are looking at how to convert this into converse form, and we are just looking at if the converse is always true. Is this true always? If something contains, or if some eatable, it contains calcium, then it is cheese. No, it's not necessary, because there are so many edible items where which contain calcium, but it is not cheese, right? So here we have seen that the converse is not always true. Okay, it can be false or can be true. Okay, it is not always true. Let us look at one more example. So 18-year-olds are eligible to drive. First thing, we have to write this in if then form. So for that we need to understand what is if here and what is then. So that can be written as if you are 18 years old, the first part, that is 18-year-old, we will just add a if behind it, before it. So that would be if you are 18 years old, then you are eligible to drive. And what will be the converse of this? We need to just switch places. So that will be if you are eligible to drive, then you are 18 years old, right? If you are eligible to drive, then you are 18 years old. This will be the converse of this. And is it true? Is it true? If you are eligible to drive, then you are 18 years old. No, it's not true, because it's not necessary that the person is strictly 18 years old. The person can be more than 18, right? The person can be 40 years old and still that person can drive. So here we have seen two examples where the converse is not necessarily true. All right, let us look at some mathematical examples now. So here we see, if a conditional statement is true, its converse is not necessarily true. So first statement is like the conditional statement: if a quadrilateral is a rhombus, then its diagonals are perpendicular bisectors of each other. This is the question, okay? And we are asked to write its converse. So first thing, we search what is the antecedent here. Like, its quadrilateral is a rhombus, then after then the part, it is the consequent. Its diagonals are perpendicular bisectors of each other. So what are we going to do? We are just changing places. So we write the second statement first, that is, if the diagonals are perpendicular, right? If the diagonals of a quadrilateral, if they are perpendicular bisectors, then what happens? Then it is a rhombus. So you see the second part, it is a rhombus. The first thing is moved to the second place. All right, we are just switching the two parts, the antecedent and the consequent. Let us look at one more example. The question is, or the conditional statement is, if a number is prime number, then it is even or odd. Okay, so if a number is a prime number, then it is either even or odd. The first part, that it is, if it is a prime number, right? And the letters or the phrases, the words which are after then, that is consequent, right? Antecedent and consequent, the first part and the second part, we are just switching both of them. So if a number is even or odd, it is even or odd, right? So what is even or odd? We need to write something, so it's like a number. So if a number is even or odd, then what would happen? Then it is a prime number. Okay, but this is not necessarily true. Why? Because if we look at a number, let's say 10, 10 is even, and let us look at some odd number. Let's say a number 21. Okay, so we are looking at odd and even number. Are both of them prime? No, they are not, because this can be factored, right? Same way this can be factored. This is not prime. So we see that the statement, the main statement is true, but the converse is false. So this is a very important point. Remember this, that if a statement is true, it is not necessary that the converse will also be always true. It can be false also. Right? With that, now we will move to the board and we will be doing some problems from practice set 1.3. Yes. So the first question is, write the following statement in if then form. Okay. So let's read the first question. It says the opposite angles of a parallelogram are congruent. So first identify what is antecedent and what is consequent. Okay, so there are two parts, the first part and the second part. The opposite angles of a parallelogram are congruent. That means the angles are congruent, then it is a parallelogram. We can break it like that. Means the opposite angles are congruent. This is the first part, and the second part, that it is a parallelogram. Okay, now we don't have to like, here we are just asked to find, to write if and then, correct? We are just asked to write if and then. So how do we mention this in if and then format? We just need to put in if and then. So if it is a parallelogram, then the opposite angles will be congruent. Okay, so if it is a parallelogram, we cannot write it simply like if it is a parallelogram. We need to phrase it properly, correct? So parallelogram belongs to quadrilateral family, and hence we use that word quadrilateral here, stating if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. This is a symbol for parallelogram, students. So if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then what will happen? Then the opposite angles, they are congruent. So that is how we insert if and then here. Okay, good with the first one. Let's move to second one now. The diagonals of a rectangle are congruent. The diagonals of a rectangle are congruent. That means if it is a rectangle, then the diagonals will be congruent. Okay, it means that if it is a rectangle, then the diagonals are congruent. Okay, So how do we write it? If it is a rectangle, we have to use the word quadrilateral, right? So because rectangle, parallelogram, rhombus, square, they all belong to quadrilateral family. Okay, so if a quadrilateral is a rectangle, if that's a rectangle, then what can we say? Then the diagonals are congruent. Okay, isn't that easy? We are just identifying what is the main part and what is happening next. So the antecedent and the consequent, you should be very clear about that. Okay, let us look at the third part now. Yes, so we are done with first and second. We are looking at the third part. In an isosceles triangle, the segment joining the vertex and the midpoint of the base is perpendicular to the base. Now, what does this mean here? That suppose a triangle is an isosceles triangle, then what would happen? See, a comma is used here. So, this is the easiest question actually. Clearly, a comma means the first part will be if and the complete second part will be then. Okay, so once again, just look at it. Yes, it has a comma over here. So we insert in if very easily here. So if a triangle, isosceles triangle belongs to triangle family. So we say if a triangle is an isosceles triangle, then what happens? Then the complete part. Then the segment joining the vertex and the midpoint of the base is perpendicular to the base. The complete part would follow. Okay, so comma 1 is the easiest question. Now here we will look at the first question. This is question number 2. We are asked to write the converse of the following statements. So the first statement is, if alternate angles made by, the first question is, the alternate angles formed by two parallel lines and their transversal are congruent. Okay, we are asked to write its converse. So to write its converse, first we need the if then form. Okay, that is, we need to find what is the antecedent here and what is the consequent, right? So here we are given that the alternate angles, the we are given that the alternate angles formed by two parallel lines and their transversal are equal. It means first part given is the alternate angles are congruent. Okay, and the second part is that the two parallel lines and the transversal. Okay, so when we write it in converse, the converse will be the alternate angles will come first. Okay, so it will be if the alternate angles made by two lines and its transversal are congruent, then the lines are parallel. All right, why so we went that way? Because here initially the two parallel lines is mentioned, so this should be the consequent, this will be the second part and the rest will be the first part. Okay, so how do we write it? If the alternate angles, if the alternate angles which are made by two lines. Now here we will not write it as those two lines are parallel. We are writing if the alternate angles made by two lines, any two lines, okay, by any two lines, and there is a transversal, of course, yes, and its transversal, if they are congruent, if these two angles are congruent, what can we say? Then the lines will be parallel. Okay, so try to understand the meaning of the given statement first and then break it into two parts. The first part will be written later for writing the converse. Okay, so that's how we write the converse. Let us look at the second one now. if a pair of interior angles made by a transversal of two lines are supplementary, then the lines are parallel. So you see here, they this one is again a very easy problem. Why so? Because they have used the words if and then. That means this is the first part, and the words which are after then, that is the second part, right? So we just need to switch the places. So we start with this, like if the lines are parallel, then what will happen? Then a pair of interior angles made by it will be supplementary, right? But we need to phrase it properly. So how do we mention that? We write it as if two parallel lines, okay? So that is if two parallel lines, just the way it is written over here, just check. These sentences are like very standard sentences, okay? So if two parallel lines, they are intersected, or we can just mention that if two parallel lines and their transversal, okay, let's not look at that one. So if two parallel lines are intersected by a transversal, so this is the first part, then what would happen? Then which type of angles are those? Those are interior angles. Then the interior angles, they will be supplementary. Then the interior angles so formed are supplementary. So it will take some practice, right, to state them or to phrase them properly. Okay, we move to next one now. That is the third part. We are left with the last one now. The diagonals of a rectangle are congruent, right? What does it mean here? That if it is a rectangle, then what happens? Then the diagonals, they are congruent. So first part is that it is a rectangle, and second part is that the diagonals, they are congruent, right? And we need to switch the places now, because we are asked to write the converse, correct? So how do we write the converse? We say if the diagonals, if the diagonals of a quadrilateral, because we need to use the word quadrilateral. So if the diagonals of a quadrilateral, if they are congruent, right? If the diagonals of a quadrilateral are congruent, then what would happen? Then it is a, then that quadrilateral, it will be a rectangle. It is a rectangle. Okay, so if the diagonals of a quadrilateral are congruent, then the quadrilateral is a rectangle. So always try to understand the parts first, and then you switch them, you switch the places, so that you get to know um, how to flip it or how to switch the places. Okay, now this completes practice set 1.3. Let us look at few more questions from the problem set. All right, so this is question number 8. Write the converse of each of the following sentences. If the sum of now these questions are very easy, we will look at only one of them, and you can do the remaining on your own. Okay, so these statements are if type, correct? So everywhere you can see if is there and then is there. So the words after this, if, this is the first part and this is the second part, right? You just need to switch them. So if the sum of measures of two angles is 90-degree, then they are complement to each other. So we are just uh, changing the places. That means if two angles are complementary, then the sum of those two angles will be 90-degree. We write this part first. They are complement of each other. Now what are complement of each other? The complementary angles, right? So if the angles are complementary angles, then what would happen? Then their sum, or then sum of measure of those two angles is 90 degree, like that. Okay, these questions are really easy because they have the words if and then, right? So you just need to phrase it properly. This is very easy type of questions. And the last one, here write the antecedent and the consequent. So just check, antecedent is the given part, okay, and consequent is the part which is to be proved. All right. So for the first one, if all sides of a triangle are congruent, then it is, its all angles are congruent. So the first part is the antecedent. That means we are given that the triangle, if all sides of a triangle are congruent, it means we are given that all the sides of a triangle are congruent. And what is the consequent? Consequent is all angles will be congruent. We will be proving this, right? We are asked to prove this. Okay, isn't that easy? Try out the second one on your own. And now it's time for a quiz. So let me quickly give you the instructions and then you can proceed for the quiz. So doing maths is like giving nice exercise to your left brain. Isn't that amazing? So let's begin. The instructions or the directions are, you need to go to any web browser, Google in joinmyquiz.com. You need to Google in joinmyquiz.com. Okay, and especially you would be selecting the first option, that is for students. And once you click on that, yes, once you click on that, you will be directed to a page like this, quizzes, and then you will get a option to enter in the code. I will be giving you the code, and then it will ask you for your name. Once you enter in the name, you would be here on the dashboard. Okay, so everyone, please Google in joinmyquiz.com, and the code is 346893. The code is, yes, the code is 346893. I see Mansi Rajkumar have joined. Others, quickly. Yeah, great, wonderful. You all have done this many times. We have taken this type of quiz many times. And I'll still repeat the directions. You need to go to any web browser and Google in joinmyquiz.com. You need to select the first link, which is for students, right? And then it will ask for a code. You can see the code on your screen. The code is 346893. Once you enter in this code 346893, you will be asked to enter in the name. So enter your name with your school name, all right? And then you will be redirected to the next page, that is this one, the live dashboard. Here you will see that you're waiting for others to join. Okay, I see the total participants are 230. I request everyone to quickly join in and we'll begin in a minute. Okay, so everyone, please be fast. The process is really easy, it's really simple. You need to go to any web browser, Google in joinmyquiz.com. Straight, everything without space. Joinmyquiz.com. And you'll get the first link itself, which is joinmyquiz.com. First link for students. All right. And once you click on that, it will ask for a code. The code is 346893. Once you enter the code, it will ask for a name. Enter in your name. And again, when you click on start, you will be here on the dashboard. So we'll wait for 40 seconds. Quickly, students, quickly, everyone, join in. This is really easy. Yes. Let's wait for another 30 seconds. At least we need 100 participants, right? So there are 230 of you. Quickly, everyone, join in fast. Go to any web browser, Google in joinmyquiz.com, joinmyquiz.com, and you will be clicking on the first link, which is for students. Once you click on that, it will ask for a code. The code is 346893. And when you enter this code, it will ask for a name. Enter in your name, and you will be here on the dashboard. Just 2 steps. Enter the code and your name, and you will be here. Very good, everyone. And we'll wait for another 10 seconds. Let's wait for another 10 seconds. Priyanshu Gupta, Swatantra, Ramiz has joined. Very good. Achal, others quickly join. Another 10 seconds and we'll begin. Another 10 seconds and we'll begin. So we see 72 of you have already joined, and I'm going to start the game over here. So it's a live quiz and it's based on basic concepts of geometry. Others who wish to join, you can still join. Abhishek Okay.